This week, disgraced NBC News anchor Brian Williams resigned from the Congressional Medal of Honor Foundation. The blow is just the latest in a string of consequences faced by Williams after it was exposed that he lied about getting shot at in a helicopter while covering the Iraq War in 2003. In reality, he was in a helicopter riding 30 minutes behind the one that actually got shot at. The embarrassing backlash forced NBC to suspend Williams for 6 months without pay. And while the controversy has had talking heads across every major network criticizing Williams for his fib, turns out he's not the only mainstream journos embellished their experiences on the battlefield. Fox's Bill O'Reilly was quick to bash Williams, yet his own reporting in the Falkland Islands have recently been called into question as well. See, O'Reilly has often invoked his time on the islands as a war correspondent for CBS as proof of how he really understands what war is, and as someone who's really seen it with his own eyes. Only one little problem, though. O'Reilly's own memoir, which he published in 2001, claims that he arrived at the Argentines, surrendered after the Argentines surrendered to British forces. Not only that, but as Mother Jones notes, due to the fact that the war was fought in such a remote location, the British government only allowed around 30 journalists to embed with its forces. So how O'Reilly was ever actually able to see any combat remains a mystery. It just sounds so nice, doesn't it, to say that you know war. Therefore, you can be a disgusting war hawk bigot who has the moral authority to sell it all over again. But above all, isn't it fantastic that these pundits and the public alike are so determined to hold the press's feet to the fire and are absolutely making sure that journalists' war reporting is truthful and honest? Man, if only we had the same kind of public demands for accountability when journalists were promoting lies that actually got us into these wars in the first place. Yeah. Remember the abysmal failure of the entire media apparatus in the wake of 9/11? When the Fourth Estate became groveling stenographers and alleged watchdogs became lapdogs, reprinting government press releases. And although there are far too many so-called journalists to point fingers at for lacking to the establishment during this embarrassing time, I'll just call out one. A woman named Judith Miller in a little publication called the New York Times. See, Miller co-wrote a book on bioweapons called Germs, just 3 days before the first anthrax letters were sent to Congress on October 5th, 2001. Miller's book focused primarily on Saddam Hussein and Russia's buildup of biological weapons stockpiles, including anthrax, and how a biological attack against the U.S. was a more than likely scenario. Most notably, Miller's book talks about how Iraq might not directly attack the U.S. with these weapons. Instead, it might use a surrogate to do so, one like Al-Qaeda. Yeah, you may remember the Bush administration arguing the exact same thing across the mainstream media. Miller was also the leading journalist at the New York Times, reprinting Bush-era claims about WMDs in Iraq and the lead-up to the war, specifically Saddam's quest for a nuclear bomb. However, she didn't stop with shamelessly selling lies and war propaganda. Miller most blatantly demonstrated her loyalty to the Bush administration during the Plame affair. Valerie Plame was the wife of a diplomat who publicly doubted Bush administration claims that Saddam was pursuing a nuclear bomb. And in what many see as retaliation for the blow to the administration's narrative, Chief of Staff to Dick Cheney, Scooter Libby, leaked the identity of Plame to members of the press, including Miller. Just one problem. Plame was a CIA agent whose identity was classified. And instead of outing the Bush boys for revealing classified information, she opted to go to jail instead. The whole affair demonstrated just how far Judith Miller was willing to go in order to defend people in power. So while her former colleague James Risen was willing to go to jail to protect his sources that exposed government wrongdoing, Miller martyred herself to protect the government. And while people like Brian Williams' lies may have killed his ego and career, it's time we focus on lies that have killed millions of people instead.